For 6 months, Olivia received flowers every Friday from someone she had never met. The first bouquet appeared on a cold Friday morning in early March. It was a small bundle of white daisies wrapped in brown paper and tied with a pale blue ribbon. There was no card, no name, and no company logo. It had simply been left outside the door of Olivia's apartment before sunrise. At first, she assumed it had been delivered to the wrong address. She looked at the apartment number, checked the hallway, and even knocked on her neighbor's door. Nobody was expecting flowers, and nobody knew where they had come from. She carried them inside anyway, placed them in an old glass jar, and forgot about them before leaving for work. The following Friday, another bouquet was waiting. This time, it was made of yellow tulips. The Friday after that, there were soft pink carnations. Then lavender. Then sunflowers. Every bouquet looked simple, but everyone had been arranged with care. Olivia lived alone in a quiet apartment building on the edge of the city. She had worked as an accountant for nearly 7 years, and her life rarely changed. Her mornings started before sunrise, her evenings ended with television or a book, and most weekends disappeared beneath laundry, grocery shopping, and cleaning. Her co-workers described her as kind but quiet. Her neighbors knew her only as the woman who always carried reusable shopping bags and never made any noise. There was nothing particularly unhappy about her life. There simply wasn't much excitement left in it. The flowers slowly changed that. Every Thursday night, she found herself wondering what the next bouquet would look like. Every Friday morning, she opened her apartment door with a small feeling of anticipation she had not experienced in years. She bought a proper vase. She learned how to trim flower stems so they lasted longer. She even began opening the curtains every morning because the flowers looked more beautiful in natural sunlight. Without realizing it, she started smiling more often. One afternoon, a coworker stopped beside her desk. "You seem happier lately." Olivia looked surprised. "Do I? I think so." That was the entire conversation, yet she thought about it all evening. Had she really changed? Perhaps only a little. But little changes often arrive quietly. As spring turned into early summer, the mystery remained unsolved. She asked the building manager if anyone had left instructions. No. She checked the security cameras in the lobby with permission. The delivery always happened before dawn, when the camera facing the entrance was temporarily blocked by the bright morning light. She waited by her window one Friday before sunrise. Nothing. When she finally made herself a cup of coffee, she returned to find another bouquet already sitting outside her door. It felt almost impossible. Soon, the flowers became part of her routine. She no longer questioned whether they would arrive. She only wondered which colors they would bring. Some Fridays were filled with bright orange lilies. Others carried tiny wildflowers gathered into simple bundles. Once, the bouquet contained small white blossoms she had never seen before. She spent half an hour searching for their name online. Her apartment slowly became warmer. Not because of the flowers themselves. Because she began taking better care of the place around them. She bought new curtains. She repaired the loose kitchen cabinet she had ignored for months. She started cooking dinner instead of ordering takeout several nights a week. The apartment no longer felt like somewhere she slept. It began feeling like home. One Friday morning, heavy rain covered the city. Instead of flowers, she found a waterproof paper bag protecting a bouquet from getting wet. Whoever had delivered it had thought about the weather. That small detail stayed with her all day. Someone she had never met cared whether the flowers arrived safely. Several weeks later, curiosity finally became stronger than patience. After work, Olivia visited the flower shop whose wrapping paper matched the bouquets. The owner recognized them immediately. She listened carefully while Olivia explained everything. For a moment, the woman behind the counter became unusually quiet. Then she disappeared into a small office at the back. When she returned, she was carrying a sealed envelope. She gently placed it on the counter. "She asked us to give you this after 6 months." Olivia stared at the envelope. "Who?" The florist smiled softly but did not answer. Olivia carried the envelope home without opening it. She made tea. She watered the flowers already standing by the window. Only then did she carefully break the seal. Inside was a single folded sheet of paper. The handwriting was neat but slightly shaky. It read, "If you're reading this, it means you've smiled again." Olivia read the sentence 3 times. She turned the page over. Nothing else. The next morning, she returned to the flower shop. The owner seemed to know she would come back. She invited Olivia to sit near the window before quietly explaining everything. Nearly a year earlier, an elderly woman named Margaret had visited the shop. Margaret had been receiving treatment at the nearby hospital. She knew she did not have much time left. During one of her appointments, she often sat by the hospital window overlooking the apartment building across the street. Almost every weekday, she noticed the same young woman leaving for work. The woman always walked with her eyes lowered. She never looked at the sky. She never noticed the trees changing with the seasons. She never seemed angry. She simply looked tired. Margaret never learned her name. She never spoke to her. But after watching her for several months, she quietly asked the florist a question. "If someone receives flowers every Friday, do you think they'll begin looking forward to Fridays again?" The florist had smiled. "I hope so." Margaret used part of her savings to pay for a year's worth of flowers. She chose every bouquet herself. She left simple instructions. No cards. No signature. No explanation until 6 months had passed. Olivia felt a lump rise in her throat. She had spent half a year imagining secret admirers, forgotten friends, mistaken deliveries, even elaborate marketing campaigns. The truth was much simpler. A stranger had noticed her sadness. That was all. The florist opened a small notebook kept beneath the counter. Inside were sketches of flowers beside handwritten notes. Week 1, white daisies. They remind people of new beginnings. Week 6, sunflowers. Everyone deserves one bright morning. Week 12, lavender. Peace sometimes arrives slowly. Every bouquet had been planned. Every flower had carried a quiet wish. Olivia closed the notebook carefully. She never met Margaret. She never had the chance to thank her. But for the first time in many years, she cried without feeling lonely. That summer passed differently from every summer before. She began taking evening walks after work. She visited the farmer's market on Saturdays instead of sleeping until noon. She started greeting her neighbors instead of rushing past them. She even joined the community library's weekend reading club, where she met people she would never have spoken to only months earlier. Life itself had not changed very much. She had. One Friday, after work, Olivia bought a small bouquet of fresh daisies. She walked to the hospital where Margaret had once received treatment. Near the entrance sat a young woman waiting alone beside an elderly man sleeping in a wheelchair. The woman looked exhausted. She held a paper cup of cold coffee and stared silently at the ground. Olivia hesitated only for a moment. Then she gently placed the flowers beside her. She smiled. The young woman looked up in surprise. Before she could say anything, Olivia had already continued walking toward the street. She never learned the woman's name. She never looked back. The following Friday, Olivia bought another bouquet. This time she left it on a park bench where an elderly gentleman spent every afternoon reading. The week after that, she left flowers outside the apartment of a neighbor who had recently lost her husband. Sometimes she handed flowers directly to someone. Sometimes she left them anonymously. She never included a card. She wanted the flowers to speak for themselves. Months later, the florist called her. There was one final request. Olivia returned to the shop that afternoon. The florist handed her a small envelope that had remained sealed until then. Inside was another note from Margaret. It contained only one sentence. Kindness is the only gift that becomes more valuable after you give it away. Olivia folded the note carefully and placed it inside her wallet. Years passed. She eventually moved to a different apartment in another part of the city. Her job changed. Her hairstyle changed. Even the furniture in her home changed. But every Friday morning, fresh flowers still appeared somewhere in the city. Sometimes on a hospital bench. Sometimes outside a retirement home. Sometimes beside a lonely desk in a quiet office. Nobody knew who had left them. Nobody knew why. Perhaps someone smiled on their way to work. Perhaps someone carried the bouquet home after a difficult week. Perhaps someone simply remembered that life still held unexpected beauty. Olivia never tried to count how many flowers she gave away. She had learned that kindness was never about numbers. It was about passing hope from one heart to another, often without either person ever knowing the other's name. And sometimes, that is all we need to remember. A single act of kindness may last only a moment, but the hope it leaves behind can bloom for years.